Alexandria was a place of fusion. Its very existence indicated a new era in history. In Alexandria, the Hellenistic way of life and its intellectual concepts met the ideas of the Orient, principal among which was the singular Jewish concept, the profound and revolutionary belief in one God and a universal morality. The tension created by this meeting had enormous consequences for the Jews. The differences between their ways and the ways of the Greeks would splinter the practices of the Jewish people.
By the beginning of the 2nd century, Alexander the Great's empire had disintegrated into separate kingdoms. Judah fell under the sway of Syria. In Jerusalem, a group of priests allied with the Syrians set about to change the form of Judaism, to make it more Greek, less distinctive, to make the Jewish people like any other within the Greek world. This led to popular revolt. Revolt in turn provoked repression by the Syrians. Their king, Antiochus Epiphanes, sided with the Hellenists. He forced Jewish practices into the darkness. He forbade, under penalty of death, circumcision, observance of the Sabbath, and possession of a copy of the Torah. In the year 168 before the Common Era, he plundered the temple, ordered pagan sacrifices in every town, and tried to supplant the one God with alien gods and goddesses. He stationed troops in Jerusalem, but they could not prevent rebellion. Antiochus had to send in more troops. The result was massacre. The rebels were driven into the Badlands, the hills of Judah, where they fought on. Their leaders were the Maccabees, Mattathias and his 5 sons. One of the sons, Judas Maccabaeus the Hammer, took command of the Jewish resistance. Judas Maccabee's command grew from a desperate band hiding wherever it could to an organized force, to an army resolute and expert. After 3 years in the wilderness, it was strong enough to storm Jerusalem. The Maccabees defeated the troops garrisoned in Jerusalem and liberated the temple. The traditions of the people had triumphed.
Having won independence for all of Judea by force of arms, the Maccabees now established a line of high priests. They were supported by a conservative group who wished only to observe the strict letter of the law as defined in the Torah. The priests and their supporters became a single party known as the Sadducees. Their counterpart was a group known as the Pharisees. They were scholars, many of simple background, who taught among the people. They believed that the laws of the Bible were open to interpretation, open to discussion and analysis. Perhaps through them, Greek civilization had its greatest influence on the Jews. For they admired Greek logic, the subtlety of Greek thought, and they applied it to their own studies. It was the Pharisees who first proposed the resurrection of the dead and life after death as articles of faith. It was they who advocated the threefold duties of worship, charity, and study. Study, examination of the meaning of the word. For many, it was a public activity in schools and in the streets. For others, it was intensely private.
The members of the scholarly sect which lived here in Qumran are known principally for some documents which they hid for safety in these caves. Documents which were not found again for 2 millennia. The scholar's business was the unremitting study of the Torah. They eschewed private property, endured a rigid discipline, and lived in communal houses. so inflexible was their doctrine that it would not even allow their bowels to pursue their natural function on the Sabbath day. Some of them were celibate. In many ways, they were the first community of monastics in the Mediterranean world. The legacy of these solitaries was a vast collection of religious and theological documents, now known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their survival into the 20th century would provide the oldest known copies of texts from the Hebrew Bible. From the book of Deuteronomy.
Therefore shall you lay up these words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them as a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes.
Among the objects found at Qumran were sacred amulets called phylacteries in Greek, tefillin in Hebrew. The devout wore them at all times. One was placed on the forehead between the eyes. The other was fastened on the left arm so that the words it contained rested on the heart. The phylacteries were a reminder of the continual presence of God. They contained excerpts from his laws. On the leather was incised the Hebrew letter Shin. The straps by which they were attached were knotted to form the Hebrew letters Daled and Yod. Shin, Daled, Yod. The letters of the sacred name Shaddai, the Almighty. So for the devout, what they carried next to their hearts and minds in every waking moment was a reminder of their covenant with God. But no amount of prayer rising from the deserts and barren hills of Judah could protect the Jews from a culture in which almost everything that was valued was purely material.